Hi guys, Ross here and welcome back to another video. So in today's video I'm going to be going over one of the principles of animation. So this is something I've recently started to look into and try to learn to better my animations. So I thought I'd share this with you guys and maybe help you along the way as well. So the first principle of animation is called squash and stretch. As you see, when the ball falls down it kind of stretches, and then as it hits the floor it squashes and then bounces back up. And this is to show a few things. This is to show the volume of the object, the mass, and the speed at which it's travelling. So if we play that back, you can see that it looks a lot more interesting than if we just look at, for example, it like this, where it's just a circle the whole time. It completely changed the dynamic of the animation, and you can apply this to anything. But today I'm going to be showing you how to create this animation. So let's jump straight into it and let's just get to keyframing. So I'm going to create a new composition. I'm working in a 1080 by 1080 for Instagram and a frame rate of 30 frames per second and a duration of 6 seconds. Let's hit OK and let's come up to the top, left click and hold and get the Ellipse Tool. Now if you hold shift on your keyboard and draw, you will create a perfect ellipse and then you can let go. Now what we're then going to want to do is press Y, and this allows us to change the position of the anchor point. Now what we're going to want to do is first of all make sure that the snapping is ticked on the top of our toolbar. This is just at the top next to all the settings. Just make sure you've got that ticked and then drag this anchor point to the bottom so it snaps at the bottom middle of the sphere. And the reason for this is that when we adjust the scale, it will scale around that anchor point, because if we were to scale from the top of it, it would start to go out of our composition, because obviously we're going to be working at the bottom. So we've got that anchor point set up in the right position and we can start to keyframe this. So if we press V again for our just normal selection tool, select our layer and go to our alignment tools. If that's not showing for you, you can come up to window and press align and just make sure you've got it aligned vertically. Of course you don't have to, but I'm going to for the sake of wanting to. So we're going to press P whilst we have our layer selected, and this is going to bring up our position parameters, and we're going to select the number on the right hand side out of the two and just drag it to the left so that it's outside of our composition. Press the little stopwatch, move forward let's say about 20 frames and just drag it all the way so that it's at the bottom. You may have to zoom in just to make sure that it's actually resting on the bottom, and that's good enough for me. And now if we look at our composition, the keyframes, we simply have a falling ball down to the bottom. So now we can start to adjust our scale parameters and start to bring some personality to this sphere. So if we make sure we have our layer selected and press S, we get our scale parameters. If we then untick this link button, and that is going to allow us to squash it, squash it and stretch it. So let's go back to the beginning of our composition and just keep these at 100 and set a keyframe. We can then press U and this is going to bring up all the keyframes that we have made so far. So obviously as the ball starts, I'm going to zoom out just so I can see the sphere outside. As the ball starts, obviously it's not moving, so there would be no squash and stretch to it, but as we start to move and it picks up speed, it would then start to squash and stretch. So let's get to about here, 15 frames in, and start to elongate this and squash it. Now obviously it needs to remain proportional, not in the sense that it's still a sphere, but in the sense that it still has the same volume. So if we reduce the width of it to 75%, that then needs to be added to the length, which would be 125. So that's still the same size as it was when it was originally a sphere. So that's just kind of something, if you're just playing around with this roughly, you don't have to go into those, but if you're doing it and you want it to be mathematically correct, that is how you would do it. So let's watch it, and as it's coming down you see it starts to pick up the speed and it starts to stretch, right? And maybe we could bring that in sooner, maybe about 10 frames, and there we go, awesome. So that's actually quite slow, so I may bring that final keyframe to like 15 seconds. So there we go, cool. Right, so the next keyframe is actually going to be when the ball hits the floor. So we're going to come to our scale and create another keyframe at the same time that it hits the floor, and then move along 5 frames, and what the ball is actually now going to do is squash and stretch. So it's going to stretch out, let's say to 125%, and then the height of it's going to go down to 75. So basically a reverse of what just happened. So let's play this back again. Alright, let's not do that. Let's sort our work area out. And there you go, it starts to squash down, and then again it's going to bounce back up. So again, let's reverse this. So that would be, let's say 90% for the width, and then 110 for the height. And then the next keyframe, another 5 frames along, will be back to its normal state. So 100 scale and 100 for both of those. So let's just watch that back, and you can see that's got some personality and some bounce to it. And just through a few simple keyframes, we have created a animation with personality, and we have recreated and replicated the squash and stretch principle of animation. So I hope you guys have found this helpful. Of course, this can be applied to anything, but I think this is a good place to start. As I start to learn more, I will then share that with you guys and help you improve your animations. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will catch you in the next video.